Welcome back. In this video, we're going to be looking at creating some text to display the score and working on the score as well. So what I've done is and you should be able to find it in the file there, is a different font than the standard Arial. So we want to create this old school again. And so I've got this font that I've added to my assets called Pixel Art. And this is basically what we'll be using here. I don't think you have to bring in the license and the README, but I've just brought the whole thing in there. If you want, you could put this in a separate folder, and actually let's do that. Called fonts. We'll just be using this one, but oops, pull that out, and then just throw those fonts into there. Good. Okay, so in order to use the font, we'll use the text tool that we've done before. So we're going to come over here, create game object, and we're going to be using a UI system and the text. Okay, and so now, hopefully, we've got the pixel art one here. Okay, and you can see just from there, we've got this style text here. Okay. Obviously, it won't show up very well with being on the black, so I'm going to shift that to white. Okay, so all white there, and you can see it, and it's sitting down here. We want to move its position, probably the center top, and then we'll just create one text and then another text. So I'm going to try to put it. I always get this wrong. So Shift Alt. There we go. So now it's the top left, and then you can just sort of move it from there. I would say we need a larger text as well. So probably crank this up a bit. What should we do here? Oops. And remember, it will disappear based on the size of the box here. So to fix that as well, you can just allow it to overflow. And then you don't have to actually go ahead and change the box size. I used to always change the box size, but if you just go to overflow, you're fine. I'm going to put a number in here instead of the new text, just because it is going to be a number in there. Okay, and obviously we'd want it a little bit lower on the y-axis. So I'm just going to do something like that. Okay, so I'll just clean that number up. Minus 16. Okay, sure. And basically going to do the same thing here. So in this canvas, I'm going to make sure I call this will be the player one, because the player is on the left side. And we'll just duplicate that. So we'll duplicate and rename this one. We'll call this enemy. And we'll just shift that one over on the x-axis here. So this one is okay, so we'll just have to put it over, and I'm just going to eyeball it here. Something about there. Okay, we might have to shift it over a little bit later, but at least we've got our text. Now, before we get into the coding to control these, another thing that we want to do is have some way of detecting whether the player's one or the enemy's one in terms of where the ball is. And so we already did create a wall before, and actually I'm going to pull this temporary player wall, and you might remember I just sort of had as an empty, or not as an empty, but with just a box collider on it with no renderer on it. I'm going to pull that one out. Okay, we're actually going to use that. So I just pulled it out of there because it's not really a wall now. Okay, just going to zoom in, and I think it was in a fine position. Yep, it was behind the player there. I'm going to clean it up. So 26 would be okay. I think 26 is fine. It is there, and it's got a box collider on it. We don't need this material anymore. Okay, so you can remove the material. Okay. And we're going to set this to isTrigger, because it's not actually going to be bouncing the ball anymore. It's simply going to be telling the, that the ball has passed the enemy in this case. So I'm going to call it enemy. And I don't know what the best term is here. Sort of from reading, I've heard that it's called a dead zone. So let's call it a dead zone. I've never heard that term before, but when I was looking into this, they call it a dead zone. Sounds good. And of course I did that again. Always forget to press enter. And okay. Eventually, there we go. Press enter. So we've got my enemy dead zone, and we're going to need a duplicate. Okay, and it should be at minus 26. So that should fit nicely there. It looks like it does. And so of course we'll just call this player dead zone. Okay, and just remove the number. We don't need that. Good. All right. Just to keep these things clean, let's just create a dead zone empty. So I'm going to create an empty, set it to its resets, and call it dead zone. All right, press enter on that, and then just put these two guys in here. Okay, so basically what we've done is just created those two dead zones on either side, and those will be what we're going to use to detect when the ball passes behind the player or passes behind the enemy. All right, so we are going to just finish up this video here, and we'll get into programming the layer or the sort of a score script in the next video.